The White House says President Trump has been briefed on the shooting. I want to go to our chief White House correspondent, Jim Acosta. Jim, President was asked about the shooting as he returned to the White House just a little while ago. He was in North Dakota and Wisconsin.
That's right, Wolf. He was. And we should point out the president about an hour ago or so, he did put out a tweet on all of this saying that he has been briefed about the shooting out in Annapolis, Maryland. We can put that tweet up on screen. It basically says that he's been briefed on the situation at the Capitol Gazette in Annapolis, Maryland. Thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. And he also extends his thanks to the first responders who were on the scene. But Wolf, as he arrived here back at the White House from his trip out to North Dakota and Wisconsin, he was peppered with questions about the shooting in Annapolis. He had no comment to reporters. Here you can hear some of the shouted questions. Here's how it played out.
Any words about the dead in Annapolis, Mr. President? Can you talk about the active shooters in Annapolis? Could you please talk to us about the dead reporters in Annapolis?
Mr. President, will you keep talking
Do you have any words of condolence for the families, Mr. President?
Why are you walking away?
Why won't you come and talk to us about that?
So, Wolf, you can see that the president did not answer any of those questions. One question that you heard from one reporter there made a reference to, quote, enemy of the people. We should point out we don't obviously know what the motivation was behind the shooting out at Annapolis, but the White House is getting questions about whether the president's rhetoric is getting out of hand on Air Force One earlier this afternoon. In a gaggle with reporters, Lindsay Walters, who is a spokeswoman for the president, was asked about the president's rhetoric about the media, and she said violence is never tolerated in any form, no matter whom it is against. And so the White House is saying at this point, obviously they don't tolerate violence of any kind, particularly that when it's directed at journalists. One thing we should also point out, Wolf, and I think this is a very good quote from Gabby Giffords, the former Arizona congresswoman who was nearly killed in a shooting when she was at an event several years ago. She was asked, or I shouldn't say she was asked, but she did put out a statement on what happened in Annapolis earlier today. And Wolf, these are the words from Gabby Giffords. Reporters shouldn't have to hide from gunfire while doing their jobs. A summer intern in the newsroom shouldn't have to tweet for help. Wolf, obviously when we don't know the motive behind this shooting, we don't want to jump to conclusions, but I think no matter how this turns out, no matter what we find out in terms of the motivation of the shooter, obviously Gabby Giffords is right on the money there when she says that reporters should not have to hide from shooters when they go to work, Wolf.
Yeah, so many questions that need to be answered. This investigation clearly only beginning. Jim Acosta, we'll get back to you. Joining us right now, Maryland Congressman John Sarbanes. It's in his district where this occurred today. Our deepest condolences, Congressman, to all the victims and their families. I know it's a tough situation. Can you update us on the latest information you're getting?
Well, I think the latest news, Wolf, is what you've got, which is that there were 5 fatalities. There are 3 that were injured that are at Anne Arundel Medical Center, which is right close by, top-tier healthcare institution. They'll get the best care possible there. I think what we want to commend people for is how quick the response was from law enforcement. It was not only timely within about a minute, but it was also very, very coordinated. So they were able to get the scene under control, take custody of the shooter quickly, and at that point, all the attention shifts to making sure that the victims are being attended to, that the families are getting the information that they need, and that, at this stage, that's the first order of business.
Does it look, Congressman, like this newspaper was specifically targeted?
I don't think there's any way to know that at this point, Wolf. We don't have any sense of the motive of the shooter, so I don't want to speculate about that. And I think, as I said, once the shooter is taken into custody, at that point, all attention, all resources ought to shift for the foreseeable future towards making sure that the families are getting good information. There's a reunification center that's been set up nearby so that families can be reunited there, and that's where our attention should be right now.
Do you know, Congressman, if the victims, the 5 people who were killed, the others who were injured, some of them severely injured, did they all work for the newspaper?
I don't know that for sure, Wolf. I do know that the incident happened in a place where there were employees of the newspaper. So as the identity becomes clear of those who were killed and those who were injured, we'll have a better sense of that. You know, this is a small town newspaper, the Capital Gazette. It's very close to the community. These reporters know people in the community. They report on the community. They do feature articles. And so the ripple effects when these people are targeted in the newsroom, that's going to go out in many different directions. It's going to take, obviously, this community some time to recover, but that's where the emphasis should be.
Do you know, Congressman, if the families, the next of kin, have already been notified about the 5 people who were shot and killed?
I do not know that, no.
What can you tell us about the injuries, those who were injured, who were wounded in this shooting spree?
I believe that at least one of the people that was injured was taken to shock trauma, where you have a kind of emergency trauma response to the wound that's been inflicted, and then others were taken close by. And when I say close by, I mean we're talking a quarter-mile away to Anne Arundel Medical Center, which is a first-class healthcare institution. They'll be getting very good care there. Obviously, our hearts go out to them. We hope they pull through with a full recovery. And as I said, we're going to be thinking about what's happened to these families and doing everything we can to make sure that the community is recovering and that these families feel supported.
Yeah, that's so important. We know that local, state, and federal authorities, they're on the scene, they're investigating. I know you've been speaking to the FBI, ATF. What are you hearing from them?
Well, again, we're going to get the story kind of knitted together over time. The important thing, as you mentioned, is you've got every law enforcement resource really that you need to have as part of the team. They're working together. They've been working together from the beginning, not just law enforcement, but very quickly in the wake of getting the scene locked down in terms of taking custody of the shooter, the Anne Arundel County Crisis Response Team was in place. They were deploying counselors who could help with the families that were coming here and needing more information. So if you want to look at kind of a textbook response to a tragedy like this, I think the law enforcement professionals have really stepped up, and the first responders in a way that's an example to us all.
And we are so grateful to them for all that they do under these awful circumstances. Congressman John Sarbanes of Maryland, thanks so much for joining us. We'd like to stay in close touch with you.